Glamour magic isn't just about beauty. It's about changing the art of your aura and the perception of how you will be seen and perceived by the rest of the world. So, bridging ancient practices with modern witchcraft, in today's episode, I will show you how to enchant your aura and how to choose the way that the world views you. So, merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. And today we're here talking about glamour magic. So, for those who are joining us live, welcome. Welcome to everyone here. Go ahead and say hello in the chat. Let us know that you are here. And we are going to dive right in because there's a lot to talk about. So, if you are watching this live or in replay, leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the episode, and that will help us get this out to the feed of more people. As always, there will be a Q&A at the end. So I will go through and answer everyone's questions at the end as well. All right, so we are going to dive in, and we're going to start by first talking about what is glamour magic, because I think that there is a great misunderstanding about what it actually is. So sometimes people think this is just about beauty, and they will basically disregard this type of magic as not being important or as being petty, right? Or just about our looks. And that's not all that this is about. In fact, that's only one minuscule piece of what glamour magic is about. I have used glamour magic to protect people. I have used glamour magic to win jobs and get into grad programs. I have used glamour magic for a variety of different reasons, beauty and appearance only being one of them. So I'd love to hear from those who are joining us too, or anybody who watches this later in replay. Have you ever used glamour magic? How do you use it? And I hope that by the end of today's episode, you will have some idea of how you could use this in your own life. So just saying hi to a few I see in the chat. I see Amy is here, Mary Meet, and Joanna. Joanna's here, and Jenny. Mary Meet, everyone. Okay, so we're just gonna dive right in. So what is glamour magic? So like I mentioned, this is not just about beauty magic. So I think it's a magic that too many people disregard as being unimportant, inconsequential. It is really about altering the way that the world perceives you. So if you think about yourself, and if you've ever tried to intentionally change your vibe or shift your energy, you are practicing a form of glamour magic, and you may not even actually know it. So putting a glamour over something is usually the way that we refer to the word, controlling the way that that thing is perceived. So earlier I mentioned putting a glamour over someone else for protection, or putting a glamour over yourself to be perceived as qualified or confident, or whatever it is that you're trying to be perceived as. So I wanted to open up by telling a story of a student of mine who who was taking a class, and there were students in the class who had been cheating on some online work that was done, not in person. And so the teacher had become very convinced that everybody was cheating. And so what I did is I put a glamour around my student. And I used, really, because she wasn't with me, and in fact she didn't even really know that I was doing this. So afterwards I told her that I had sent energy to kind of protect her. But if you remember the scene in Star Wars, I believe it's episode 4, A New Hope, there is a scene when Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of puts a glamour over R2-D2 and C-3PO, and he's like, these are not the droids you're looking for. And so I've always used that phrase in intentional magic. So if I want kind of eyes to pass over someone and kind of protect them, and this is what I wanted in this instance is for the teacher to sort of pass over this student and not look too carefully at them, to perhaps think that she also was engaging in the cheating, which she may have, but I was trying to be protective of her. And so I put this intention out. These are not the droids you're looking for. And I kind of sent this wall of protection around her. And she is somebody who has learning differences. She has ADHD, and she has dyscalculia, and we're taking this math class, and she has dyslexia. And so I sort of put this glamour around her that she would be like, oh, she's the one, who's struggling with her learning differences. And this was kind of the perception I wanted the teacher to have of her. And lo and behold, he passed over her. A lot of other people were kind of rooted out as maybe not being academically completely honest, and she was passed over. And he never accused her or anything, never engaged with this any further with her, and it kind of the matter dropped. So I felt that my glamour magic worked, and not only was it kind of protective of her, I would also kind of imagine her sometimes when I was sending the energy the night before she was going to take a test. I would also imagine her like protected and sort of shifting the gaze away from her, and basically I added on to that, infusing her with the energy to be able to do well on this test. And what was kind of crazy too is when I was doing all of this, the material was very, very hard. And I had told her, really, you need to get like a 65% on these tests in order to pass the class. And in one of these tests, she pulls out like an 82%, and both to both herself and my surprise. And I really feel that it had to do with me sending all that energy to her and kind of infusing her with the ability to do well on that test. So that is an example of how we can use glamour to kind of control the way that someone is being perceived, and also to instill them with qualities that they can use in that moment. So like her kind of instilling her with confidence to be able to solve the problems. Like she said when she was taking the test, she's like, I don't even know what I'm writing, but it turned out to be right. And so I kind of looked back on that later, and I was like, well, yeah, that was some of that was the magic. Some of it is stuff that she pulled out of her own knowledge, but some of it was the magic, the glamour magic that I had done for her. So, as you can see, this is not just about beauty. That is a case where I used it, has nothing, literally has nothing to do with beauty at all. So let's talk about the origin of the word glamour, magic, glamour in magic. Probably comes from Scottish, Irish folk magic. So this refers to an enchantment or an illusion that would be placed over someone or something that would change others' perception of that thing. So if you have seen the craft, in particular the old craft from the late 90s, there is a scene where Sarah changes her eye color, and then kind of prompted by the other girls, she changes her hair color. And so while this is Hollywood, obviously, glamour magic is usually not that pronounced. It does give you an idea of what glamour magic is about. It's changing perception. So maybe we can't necessarily change our eye color, though I have heard of people who have kind of dual eye colors and can make their eyes look sort of one color at some times and another color at other times. For example, my eyes, when I'm very emotional, my eyes will be much greener than they are when I am not. And so that it's not as pronounced as what happens in the craft in that scene. And what I don't want people to think is that, like, look at that movie and be like, oh, that's what we're aiming for. That's not what we're aiming for. And if you think that's what we're aiming for, you might be disappointed in the magic. It can be much more subtle than that, but it can have the same result of changing the way that you appear. So there is this truth here. One of the other things that I have often used is glamour magic to make myself look younger, to be perceived as younger. So sometimes I get self-conscious when I go to the doctors and I need to talk about, like, so people have heard, I've been on a fertility journey for many years. I've had an ectopic pregnancy a few years ago. And when I go to these appointments, and I talk about trying to get pregnant as a woman who is, I'm not in my 20s or my 30s, and as someone who is a little bit older, I sometimes feel self-conscious about that when I'm talking about this with medical professionals. And so I will use a glamour before I go into the appointments to make myself appear younger and fertile. And I think that has, twofold. It's going to change sort of my perception about myself, which I think will have a positive impact on the way I feel. The younger that we feel, the better it's going to be as we age. So you can actually use glamour magic to change. It's not going to change your chronological age, but it can change the way you feel about your age or the way that you feel in your body, and that will have this perception of being younger in your body. So for me, it gave me that has that kind of one that on one hand we have that one benefit of it. On the other hand, I felt I had the more confidence when I'm in the appointments, and I feel like I'm treated differently because of the aura that I am exuding. If I had instead been kind of like sitting like this, I'm going to exude a different aura. If I hadn't done the Glamour Magic, I might have been treated differently. So lots and lots of different ways that we can use this. Glamour Magic is about your energy and your aura first and your appearance second. And that's the part I really want to stress. Again, this is not just about beauty. It's about changing your energy, and that can have lots of different uh, results, right? A lot of different benefits for us. It is not deception, so that's another thing to kind of talk about. So at the end, I will talk a little bit about the morals of doing Glamour Magic. I don't believe that this is deception. It's not like we're trying to deceive people. When I go into an appointment and I put a glamour on myself to appear younger, I'm not deceiving anybody, right? But again, we'll talk at the end. Sometimes our morality can be subjective, and some people, that may limit or that may color the type of Glamour Magic that you'll feel comfortable using. For each person, it's going to be up to you what feels comfortable and what feels best for you. But instead of this being about deception, it's about intentionally deciding which aspect of your authentic self you will project outwards or you will allow others to see. So again, going back to that idea of me projecting the younger self, I feel very young in my body. I climb mountains. I walk miles and miles and miles. I do yoga. I teach yoga. So I know that I'm very young in my body. So when I'm projecting that youngness outwards, I'm just projecting that aspect of myself rather than maybe some other aspect, right? That's really what Glamour Magic is about. It's projecting that most authentic part of you that you want people to see, and you are getting to choose what they see, as opposed to just letting the world see you in whatever way you show up. It's much more intentional. So just pausing to say hi to anybody else who is joining us. Mary Meet, to Felicia is also here, and Melinda and Kurt, Mary Meet and Nancy. So Nancy said, my eyes are hazel. They change hues all the time. They look gold or green, and they can change colors as I look around. Yeah, so there is a form of Glamour Magic. Now they're just doing that on their own. If you were intentionally doing it, so I believe it's Glamour Magic either way, but you can actually learn how to more intentionally do it as well if you want. Joanne said her eyes turn green when she's very upset and bright blue when she's happy, and normally they are hazel. Right, so we have several people here who are kind of backing up what I said, and it's a form of Glamour Magic. It's basically the aura inside of you, the energy and the emotions that you are feeling inside are projecting outward in a different way, unintentionally, because you're not even really doing anything. It's not like you're deciding to change your eyes one way or another depending on the way that you feel. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of history, folklore. We're going to see some characters through myths that have used Glamour Magic and get some ideas of how people have used it. So going back to Scottish and Irish folklore, like I mentioned, glamour is often, especially in the beginning, referred to a fairy enchantment that could alter human perception. So if you've read stories about fairies in mythology, or like what always comes to mind to me is the Myths of Avalon, and there's great sections of the book where they talk about like kind of slipping into the fairy world. And fairies are known in stories and myths to be able to change the way that certain things look. So for one thing, they can change the way that they look, and they can also change the way that humans look. So they can make a human to look breathtakingly beautiful. They can make their appearance to look more like a human, or to make themselves look breathtakingly beautiful to those who are observing them. They can also change, we see this in stories, that fairies can change mundane landmarks or things. They can make something mundane look like a palace. So just like a simple cottage looks like this enchanted palace, right? They can hide, and we see this when I say they can, we see this through certain different stories of fairies and myths of fairies, taking dangerous features like a cliff, for example, and putting an illusion over it to make it look like there's a road that continues on past it. So there have been stories where people have wandered off a pathway into a dangerous situation because it looked like it was safe, at least from their perception. So here it's all about controlling appearances of what something outside of them looks like. Other myths and legends where we see beings using glamour magic. So, for example, Freya, she has a falcon feather coat that can change her appearance and make her look one way or another way. Circe from Greek mythology has also been known to not only be able to transform herself and others into different shapes, so there's like a shape-shifting aspect to it, but also to be able to change her appearance and the appearance of others. Athena, in the especially seen in the Odyssey, she was able to make Odysseus look more handsome when he got to Phaeacia, and she was also able to make Penelope look more attractive in order for the suitors to kind of fall all over her. And in fact, another example of Athena in the Odyssey, she changed herself. There at different points, she would look like different things. So again, there is this like she at one point she appears as sort of an old man, like a mentor. And so there are transformative kind of shape-shifting aspects of this, but this is also glamour magic as well. Morgan Le Fay also was a master of glamour magic, and we can see that in books like the Mists of Avalon and other stories where Morgan Le Fay appears like the once and future king. So what are the reasons that we would use glamour magic? So again, like I've stressed multiple times, right? This is not just about beauty, but we could use it to enhance our appearance. So this would be one way. We want to look a certain way, right? Other ways that we could use it, or the way that glamour music has, or glamour magic has been used historically, is for protection. So both both warriors and witches have used certain things like face paint or masks or veils to make themselves either look bigger or stronger or scarier, right, or more dangerous, or to completely hide who they are. So like putting a veil over them so they're not noticed. So that's another type of glamour magic, is like cloaking magic. So you're putting the glamour over you so that people don't see you. So there could be a lot of different reasons that you might use this. And I have used this many times when like I am out walking and maybe I really like, as a very empathic person, people are often drawn to me. They want to talk to me. They want to tell their problems. But sometimes I don't have the energy for that. And sometimes I just want to enjoy my walk and just have it be about me. So sometimes I can sense when somebody's coming from afar, I can sense immediately what they're going to do, that they're going to try to talk to me or engage with me. And so I'll put sort of a glamour over myself, like these are not the droids you're looking for, is sometimes what I will use. And that just, to me, it puts a veil over me so that people will pass by me, and sure enough, they'll pass right by. And sometimes you'll see the hesitation, like they want to talk, but you just see them sort of pass on by. And that's exactly what I wanted. So we can use that glamour to protect ourselves, protect our energy, protect our boundaries, or protect anything about ourselselves. Now, another way that glamour magic has been used historically and can be continue to be used in the present is through ritual, or the connections that we make in ritual. So priests and priestesses historically have used glamour magic to appear like the god or like the goddess, or like a god or a goddess, or to appear as though they're in like a much bigger role. Here's a good example. The glamour magic in, and I can't remember which Lord of the Rings this is from, or which book or movie it's from, but there's a part where Galadriel appears in different forms. So she's sort of like the evil queen, and then she appears as a different form. So you can make yourself look bigger. You can make yourself look unapproachable if you don't want people to approach you. But generally in a ritual, a person is trying to step into the role, or step into a role of the divine or connected to the divine. So we want to make ourselves look goddess or godlike. And that glamour can help the person then to embody the divine, especially if the person's doing some invoking or some evoking, right? To really be able to step into your power. It can be about, not only can it be about sort of making it easier to evoke or invoke, but it can also make it so that it boosts your confidence in what you're doing. And you're going to be much better in that ritual space and much better in that magical working that you're doing. So we'll talk later on about how we can do this, like the different techniques we can use. But these are at least reasons why we might use glamour magic, and it might give you some different ideas of how to use it. So another idea and another historical way that glamour magic has been used is for social power and social status. So courtesans and nobility and leaders have long used glamour magic. Maybe they didn't call it that, but have long used glamour magic to shape their perception and shape the perception that like followers or those who are they're elevated above are the way that those people perceive them. Cleopatra was known to use certain scents and to present her setting in a certain way so that she would be perceived in a certain way. She may not have called it magic, maybe she did, but she knew that there was a way, that the way that you presented yourself, the way that scents were used, and the way that colors were used, it would change the way that people perceived you. So let's talk about the mechanics of glamour magic. So what is it all about? So like in the beginning, I said this is, first of all, it starts with energy. It's energy and it's aura first, and then it's appearance second. Let me just pause though and just check out the chat. And Kurt said is regarding the Lord of the Rings Two Towers is where that scene happens. And just saying hi to anybody else who is joining us. Merry meet. And definitely drop in the chat. Are any of these ideas sounding like they resonate with you? Would you try any of these? Have you tried any of these? Maybe you've been doing glamour magic and not even knowing it. So here are some of the mechanics. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be very good at our energy. So we need to learn how to project our energy. And usually the first way to learn how to project your energy is learning how to use your energy. And I would say that many witches actually don't really necessarily know how to use their energy, probably to the fullest capacity that they could. To me, this all starts with mastering your own energy, and that is finding a system that works for you where you're doing energy exercises on a regular basis. What I have found for me, this works for me, is Kundalini energy exercises have become a way for me to master my own energy. I can put myself into alpha state literally with the closing of my eyes and the snap of my fingers. I can change my energy very quickly because I've practiced hours after hours after hours of moving energy up and down through my body, from the inside to the outside, from the outside to the inside, and all around in my body. So if you don't have a regular energetic practice, I recommend that you find one and start to work on it. And to me, the most accessible energetic practice is working with your chakras, balancing your chakras, and using energy exercises like those in Kundalini and breath work in order to master your own flow of your own energy. Now, once you do that, now you can do glamour magic without being a master of your energy, but your glamour magic will be even more effective when you are a master of your energy. Now, kind of going back to energy projection, remember what I said. Begins first with your aura. So it's about how will you change your aura? How will you shape your aura so that it will appear different? Now, your aura will be shaped by your emotional state or by your intention of, so basically by your emotions or by your intention are kind of the two main ways that your aura will be shaped. So remember, people's talking about when their eye color changing, if they are upset or if they're exhibiting a certain emotion. Below that, energetically, we also are going to have changes in the aura taking place as well, changes in the color of the aura in particular. Now, in those instances that people were talking about, in most of the cases, they were not doing this intentionally. So the question is, how do we learn how to tap into it so that we can do it intentionally? So if we think about it, imagine bringing a calm state over yourself. So think about yourself in the most peaceful, setting that you can imagine. Okay, so for some of you that may be sitting at the ocean, some of you that may be in the forest, for some of you it may be in your favorite chair at home. But just kind of think about what calmness feels like, and when you can, if you can evoke that emotion and you can bring that emotion. So let's say maybe you're in an agitated state right now and you want to create a glamour of calmness. What you need to do is you're going to need to learn how to bring that calmness in, even though you yourself may not be calm at that moment, right? So we want to think back. The first thing is kind of connecting to, well, what is that space where I'm calm? So a person who wants to create a glamour of calmness could bring in the intention of calmness through imagining themselves in their calmest space and bringing that in. Now, all of this will happen in just a few seconds, especially if we're in let's say like we're in a really chaotic environment and we want the perception of being calm and grounded. With practice, we'll be able to do this quicker, but you can practice this over and over and over and over. So you could start from a very agitated state, close your eyes, and then try to bring in calm. And when you change your emotion, when you bring that new intention in, you will immediately begin to shift your aura color. Now, most of us can't actually read aura colors. Most of us don't see auras all the time. But if someone could, what they would notice is there would be this very slight shift in the color of your aura. And maybe it would be so subtle that most people wouldn't perceive it, but there's this slight shift in your aura. When we have a slight shift in the aura, we then are going to have a projection of energy outwards that maybe we don't even perceive and others around us don't even perceive exactly what's happening, but there's going to be this shift in how we appear and how others perceive us. So we can project outwards certain states of being, like calmness or confidence. So again, each of these cases, like whatever you want to project outwards, you want to think about when in your life have you felt that? Or let's say you yourself can't remember a time that you felt it. So let's say you're trying to project out strength, and maybe you can't remember a time when you felt really strong. Now, if you can remember a time when you felt really strong, that's the energy you want to evoke inside of you. If you can't imagine it, imagine a character, someone from a movie, a TV show, a god or a goddess that you believe is very, very strong, and evoke that energy inside of you. Now, eventually, that starts to shift your aura, and then that projects outwards. So here would be an example of me creating calmness, even though there was nervousness beneath it. So when I went in for interviews for my PhD program, which whenever I tell this story, people are like, oh, you have a PhD? I don't. I did not finish the PhD. But when I went in to apply for my PhD program, I got into every single school that I applied for, and people were actually fighting over me and kept giving me more and more and more and better offers to try to get me to come to their schools. But here's how I did all this. So believe me, I was very nervous when I had to go in for all of these interviews, just like anybody else would be as well. And I basically created an aura of calmness around me. And in fact, what I actually created was an attitude of, I don't really care. That's the now I no there no, let me back up. Like, I don't want to be like I'm saying I don't care. So there's a subtle line, a fine line here. But that I wasn't trying so hard, that I was just naturally great, that I was just naturally charismatic, and I wanted that to be the perception. I'm not trying very hard. I'm just showing up because I'm the greatest that there is here. And I brought that aura into every single interview that I did. And I got every single offer that every single school made me an offer, and each one was better than the next one. And I really believe it was because of that aura that I brought in. And I saw people outside all freaked out and kind of projecting this freaked out aura, and then I just had this subtle, like, I'm the best there is. Deception? Not at all, right? I'm simply projecting the part of me that was the best at getting what I wanted there. And I got what I wanted. So Glamour Magick, like I said, it is going to adjust your aura first, And then once your aura is adjusted, people will unconsciously respond to that new signal. And then they start to pick up on it. And that is where the perception comes from. So here would be another example of how you can use this in a very practical way that you can use this, is wearing a charged necklace or a charged piece of jewelry to help boost your confidence. So you can put a glamour over a piece of anything you wear, a piece of clothing, a piece of jewelry. You will charge it with that intention. And as I go in later and we kind of talk more about the practical aspects of how to do glamour magic, I'll go into more detail. But you would charge that object, you wear it, and then it's projecting outwards, but it's also projecting inwards. So your aura starts to change because of the energy that you are evoking because of this item that you are wearing. And then that changes your aura subtly. It shifts other people's perceptions of you. And that's how it all works. So let's talk about. Oh, okay. Actually, here's another practical example too. So this is going back like almost a year ago. I think it was in our Shadow Seekers membership. We had this whole module where we were working on the witch's wound, and for many people, the witch's wound can be about confidence, self-belief, like not, trying to get over that idea that like I don't know what I'm doing. Is this real? Am I making this up? Like these are these ideas that even our best practitioners have still running through their minds sometimes. So like we'll see signs and synchronicities around us, and we negate them because we are second guessing ourselves because of messages that other people have told us, the doubt of the collective, different things like that. So we had done this whole module where people were working through the witch's wound, in particular this one aspect of it. And so what we did is we enchanted a ring. I think it was a ring I had people bring, but I think they could also bring a piece of like a necklace or something that they were going to wear, a keychain, something that they could carry with them. The idea was to have this thing with you most of the time, particularly to be able to wear it. And so I remember enchanting this ring, and it's still, I'm wearing it like here, and it's just this ring with a pentacle on it. It has amber underneath it. And so I enchanted this ring with my power as a witch. So then afterwards, because it's been enchanted, every time I step into a setting where I want to be perceived as a powerful witch, I will wear this ring. And sometimes it's about convincing myself, right? When I step into rituals where I have to lead big groups of people, sometimes it's about convincing myself or getting over my self-doubt or those self-consciousness that really holds us back. And then, by wearing the ring, and it's already been infused with my intention, it starts to change my energy. And then again, how it works, right, is that it changes my aura. And then that is what changes people's perception of me outside. So there were a lot of, I thought this was a great kind of enchanting jewelry is a great way to do glamour magic. So try it. I'll talk a little bit more detail about it later. But it's just a way to sort of feel into the energy and then allow it to radiate outwards from you. So another kind of principle, besides sort of like changing your aura, changing energy, is sympathetic magic. So glamour magic works through sympathetic magic in that like attracts like. So when we project a state outwards, it's going to attract more of that state back towards us. So you will use colors or symbols or items that you will infuse with energy, and that is you will infuse them and you will probably choose those items based on items that will allow you to project outwards the energy that you want. So for example, a person who is like wearing the color gold, right? Gold has many different connotations to it. It will exude an element of success, right? And so if a person wants to appear as though they are successful, wearing gold and kind of enchanting themselves through glamour magic with that color, will project that outwards. So the other thing you can do too is like so you could wear gold, right? You can literally wear gold or wear gold jewelry or wear gold clothing, but you can also work to change your aura so that you bring more gold into your aura, and then that will also project out this idea of success. So other examples, so like if you were carrying a rose quartz or wearing jewelry with rose quartz will often project out a sense of approachability. So let's say you want to be seen as charismatic and approachable, and you want people to come up to you and talk to you and engage with you. Maybe you're going to a party and you're worried that you're going to be standing there alone and nobody's going to talk to you. And so if you wear rose quartz and you charge it with that intention, and through your glamour magic of being approachable, then that's going to change your aura, and then that's going to change people's perception of you, and you will appear as though you are more approachable. Cinnamon oil. So cinnamon has like its bold and spicy smell, right? So it can evoke boldness or warmth as well. So if you want to appear as though you're warm, if you want to appear as though you're very bold, right, and you take risks or something like that, you could wear cinnamon oil, and you would enchant it with your intention, but that would begin to change you from the inside, and then that changes the outside perception of you. So this is how we're using sympathetic magic, and this is how we're choosing the certain catalysts that we're using, or the certain symbols or items that we're using, is through the states that we want to evoke. So when we wear or we display, some of these symbols or these signs, and when we infuse them with our intention, then these correspondences will broadcast. They essentially change the broadcast of your signal, and they're changing the signal that you are sending outwards. So you kind of think of this as like you are the signal, and then other people are the receiver. You're broadcasting a different signal out, and that's another way of looking at what glamour magic is. So let me go back to the chat and okay. And anybody, if any of these ideas are resonating with you, or if you've tried any of them, definitely reach out and let us know. And I see Rebecca's joined us too. Merry meet, merry meet. Okay, so step 3, or just another idea in all of this, is about our intention and our visualization. So if we really want our glamour magic to be strong, we want to add to it not just the correspondences and the items and the things that we're enchanting, but we also want to add on top of it our intention. So without intention, the glamour magic is just kind of used for fashion or for grooming. So there's nothing wrong with that. Like if a person just wants to use it for their appearance, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But then we can bring in other intentions, and that's where we start to change, and we probably start to deepen the kind of magic that we're doing. So visualization and intention can transform ordinary objects into spells. So taking our jewelry, which on one hand, is probably infused already with some energy, depending on the material it's made of, but we're taking that more ordinary, mundane object, and now we're making it into a magical tool that we're going to use in our glamour magic. So, for example, as you brushed your hair, you could imagine like light being infused in your hair, right? And you'll create this glamour that you have this beautiful mane of hair, and that's going to change the perception of how people look at you. Applying lipstick, makeup, or essential oils to you, you can charge them with any kind of intention, and you could charge them so that your words so that you're eloquent, right? So like a lipstick or lip gloss. Like if you don't wear lipstick, you could just get like chapstick that's clear, and you could charge that with the intention of being like eloquent in the way that you speak, and then you use the object, and now it's not just about the way that we look, it's going to be about the way we're perceived. I want to be perceived as being eloquent. So I'm going to charge this item, I'm going to put it on my lips, and then when I speak, I'm basically imbuing everything with that intention of eloquence. Here's another example, and this one is, this is going back to my early days, but this was very effective glamour magic. So I believe I read about this spell probably in Lori Cabot's Love Magic book. So she has this book she published a long time ago, and it's called Love Magic. And she's got all these recipes in there, and I remember there being a recipe for something that was called love powder. So what you do with love powder, it's very easy to make. I believe that the recipe itself may have called for talcum powder, which we know today that the talcum powder itself probably leads to some bad things that we don't want, like ovarian cancer and things like that. And you can breathe it in, and it can be bad for your lungs. So you can actually use cornstarch. And so you just get a box of cornstarch. That's what we did. And you get some oils. And the oils that you get should reflect the intention that you want. So we were making love powder. And so Lori Cabot has suggested rose or jasmine or gardenia or one of the scents that would be very good, like lang lang, something that's very good for attraction and love. And so you put some of this oil into the talcum powder, and then I believe that we also put glitter into it. And we mixed it all up, we infused it with our intention, and then what we would do is you would take some of this powder and we would rub it on our bodies before we went out on like a Friday or a Saturday night. And so it's got that little bit of glitter, so it's pretty. It just looks like you're wearing like kind of glitter on you. And you don't have to do the glitter if you don't want that part, but you just kind of rub the powder in. And what would happen is that when we would go out to these bars, it was just shocking to me how many people were attracted to us and wanted to talk to us, wanted to buy us drinks, wanted to buy us stuff, wanted to do, and what I realized at the time is that I may not have even necessarily kind of connected that to glamour magic, but that's essentially what we were doing. We were charging this powder, right, with the intention of being attractive, and then we were putting it on, and then as we go out, it increases your confidence, just the fact that you're wearing it. If all of this ever is just simply a placebo effect, right, there's nothing wrong with that either, but it's increasing our confidence, and so you're going out and you're exuding this confidence and this attractability, and then people are attracted to you. I believe that the magic actually works, and it's way more than a placebo effect, but at the very least, if there's a placebo effect here that just changes the way that you feel and the way you project your energy out, that's glamour magic too. So I wanted to share that story because we always, like, in fact, it came up the other day. Beth was saying, do you remember when we made that love powder? And I was like, yeah, got a lot of free drinks during those days. So every step of the preparation of an item like this that we're using in Glamour Magic is charged with our intention or with our desired outcome. So kind of thinking, what do we want? Putting the intentions of attractability, if I'm using the example of the love powder, or let's say I'm charging my ring, right, to kind of get past the witch's wound. So I'm charging with the intention of feeling confident and having belief in my magical abilities. We're programming our energy before we ever step out into the world with the energy that we would like to be projecting outwards. So the other thing that what we also want to think about is ways that we can create sensory anchors. So if there are little gestures that we can do, it can also increase the energy of the magic. So what would a sensory anchor look like? So it's something that you're going to use that is going to trigger a certain state of mind or a certain emotional state in you. So if you have a scent that you pick and you only use in specific situations, what that scent will do is it will immediately trigger a memory. So there's a lot of psychology that backs this up, but it will trigger a memory of being in that situation before. And so you're basically going to evoke the energy from other situations into this one. So picking a scent that will always evoke a glamour state for you. So for example, I have a certain oil, two certain oils that I will use, and I only use them in specific states. So I love these oils, but I will never use them for anything other than two intentions. So I have one oil that I will use if I'm going to teach. So if I want to kind of evoke my greatest ability to teach people, I will wear this certain oil. If there is a time that I'm going to be leading a ritual, then I'm going to use a different oil. And outside of these two instances, I will never use these oils for anything else. So I won't put them on just because. I will only put them on if I want to be perceived as a high priestess or I want to be perceived as a teacher. So I recommend finding oils like that you will only use in the situations where you want to trigger that glamour state. And you can have multiple glamour states, right? So me, teacher, high priestess. You could have different states like attractive, calm, successful, strong, and you'll have different oils for each of those. And then you only use them in those certain instances. Now you can also, if the oil part doesn't work for you or you don't want to use oils, you can also have some kind of a physical gesture that you will do when you're kind of doing the glamour magic, like before you go out into the world, and you will kind of do this gesture. You will basically infuse this gesture with your intention, and then when you do this gesture out in the world, it will then trigger that glamour state. So things that people have done are like flipping your hair. So it's just like a simple gesture that no one would notice. But if you infuse that with an intention of something, so when you flip your hair, it means what? You infuse it with whatever intention you want to connect to it. And then every time you do it, it will trigger that glamour state because you have already kind of set the intention prior to going out that when you do that, it will bring in that state. Other things that people will do, like clasping your hands together, or I mean, it really could be anything. I think that like mudras could be also good. So mudras are like gestures that bring in energetic states. So you could do like, like a mudra like this or like that, or I mean, you can make it up. You can do some research on mudras and find one that you really like and then use that one, or just use your intuition and like what gesture would you make. And so whenever you do that, it's like a trigger that will trigger in that glamour state. So I would sit and I would kind of charge this with my intention of calm, right? For example. And then when I go outside, every time I do this, I'm bringing in that glamour of calm. An example of how I've also used this is using specific scents in rituals. So I always use rose incense in my own rituals. And it's an incense that I used ever since I came to the craft when I was in my late teens. And to me, it just immediately brings me into ritual space. Or you could wear the same clothing every ritual, and that can also kind of bring you into ritual space as well. Okay, so let's talk about tools. So what are the things that we would use in our glamour magic? So we've talked a lot about color, so it should be no surprise that color is one of the tools that we can use. So I would suggest, if you're really into color magic, learn more about the color correspondences. And even if you're not, even if you don't know anything about it, I would suggest learn about the color correspondences. So for example, red, it can exude many different emotions and states of being, like powerful, seductive, vitality. It can bring vitality into you. Black brings with it mystery, authority, psychic, shielding. So that would be a good one if you want to kind of cloak yourself. Green, abundance, groundedness, calm. Gold, success, charisma, confidence. And so what I also would suggest people do is not simply just read about the colors, but also think about what the colors mean to you. What colors do you like to wear the most, and what energies do you feel that they evoke in you? And then those are the colors that you can use in your glamour magic. Now we can take it a step further with crystals. Crystals have colors, and then they also have their own properties. So for example, we talked about rose quartz. Rose quartz is very good for the heart chakra. It exudes warmth, friendliness, and approachability. So if that's the glamour that we want, that we're very approachable and friendly and warm, then we can use rose quartz. Now we would set an intention with it prior to kind of going out and wearing it in the world, that we've set that intention, that we're bringing in approachability, we're bringing in friendliness, we're bringing in warmth, and we would charge that that piece of rose quartz that we're either going to carry or wear with us, and then when we wear it, we trigger that glamour state. Labradorite brings in kind of mystery, psychic protection. Carnelian, courage, vitality. So again, it's like get to know the stones, get to know what they're used for, and also use your own intuition. When you think of carnelian, what does it evoke in you? And that's going to be the state that you can, that's going to probably most resonate with you when you're using carnelian. Now, we can also use herbs and oils. So rose, jasmine are very good for attraction and love. If you want to appear attractive, those would be good oils to charge. You can also charge a bottle of oil with your glamour. And then every time you wear that oil or that perfume, then you're going to exude that state. Cinnamon, it will exude the state of boldness. Vanilla is very warm, and people often will trust people when they smell vanilla. What does vanilla remind you of? Like baking cookies at grandma's house. Everybody trusts grandma most of the time, right? So think about what scents bring up for you and what they bring up for other people, and then you can use those scents, put the glamour around them, bring in your intention, and then when you wear them, then you will exude that outward state that people will pick up on and perceive. Now, how can you use the oils? Well, you can just wear them. So what I do is when I've got the glamour on these different oils, and when I use them, I'm just wearing them, right? So you could just wear them. You could anoint your jewelry with them. You could anoint your clothing with them. You could put them in your hair, body oil, hair oil. If you don't want to wear them, you could put them in sachets. So you could like make a sachet out of a cloth and maybe put some stones in it and then rub the oil on those and carry it with you. So there's a lot of things you can do. If you don't want to wear it, you can also carry it on your person in some way. Clothing and accessories, you can anoint any of your jewelry. You can anoint, anoint your jewelry by, holding it to your heart, speaking your intention. I am infusing this piece of jewelry with blank intention. You can stitch small charms, runes, or sigils into the hems of clothing if you would like, and that can be a way to sort of carry the symbol with you. Again, each of these has been enchanted with your intention. Knot magic and braid magic is one of my favorite types of magic. So you can braid your hair. You can braid intentions into that and bring the glamour in that way. You can braid cords and wear them around your neck or your wrist, or just carry them with you in your pocket. You can tie knots into your shoelaces. You can tie knots into ribbons or scarves that you wear, and that can be another way to tie the intention of the glamour into that piece of clothing. You can enchant your makeup, enchant your lipstick. If you don't wear makeup, you can just get clear chapstick and you can enchant that. So a lot of different ways we could do this, right? You can also do mirror magic. Maybe you're not even going to use any of these props or tools at all, and you can just look in the mirror and you can enchant your appearance before leaving your house. So you would just stand in the mirror, you would call in the energy of whatever it is you want to be perceived as. So strength, right? So kind of you would think about when have I felt strength, or who's a person I see as being very strong. Call that energy in, sort of enchant it there. Maybe set like a mudra that you would, when you touch it, that will bring in the energy. And then when you go outside, you do that mudra and we're immediately bringing in the glamour of strength. So let's just wrap it up soon because it's been a long episode. I'm just looking at the chat again. Joanne says she's used lemongrass to evoke glamour and appear happy and energetic. Yeah, so there's a great example of evoking a glamour through using a scent. Absolutely. So the ethics. So what are the ethics? I think this is going to be subjective. So it's up to you to decide what do you feel about it? What is the difference between glamour and manipulation? I mean, personally, I think that when we're just changing the way that we appear, again, it's really about us evoking the most authentic part of ourselves. It often gets squashed down because we're nervous, or we're not confident, or we are lacking belief in ourselves, and we're just allowing ourselves to pull out that most authentic piece of us that we want to shine. So what is the line between illusion in influence and deception. So where does that line get drawn? So for many of us, that is going to have to do with our own morals, which are going to be subjective. So if this makes you uncomfortable, then it makes you uncomfortable, and you don't do this kind of magic, and that is totally fine. But if you like the idea of using it, I personally see nothing wrong with it in order to kind of change the way that we appear on the outside and evoke those states that we want to be seen for, to allow them easier access out to the outside world. Um, there are a lot of ways that glamour magic can be very empowering to people as well. So it can bring in confidence if we have performances or interviews, like I talked about those interviews in grad school, performances, public speaking. When I haven't performed on I don't perform on a stage as much as I used to. It's been a year now since I have. But back in the day when I was performing multiple times a month, I evoked a persona named Debula that one of my bandmates had kind of given me the name. And Debula has no confidence issues at all because she is center stage and loves the spotlight. And so I really put a glamour over myself around that kind of persona. And so when I sort of put that Debula mask on, nothing bothered me at all. And I could perform my heart out. And so that you can also kind of create different personas that you will use in different situations and put glamours around those. So creating energetic boundaries around draining people and situations can also be a way that we use glamour. So like the what I talked about with like people who are approaching me and I just wanted to be by myself and my own thoughts and kind of putting the glamour over me that I wouldn't be seen. You can try something like that, especially if you have to be in a situation where there's going to be a lot of people and you kind of just want to. Sometimes glamour is about standing out. Sometimes glamour is about not being seen. And so you can try that as well. Expressing your inner truth, in a way that feels safe and aligned is a way that we can use is glamour as well. And glamour can also be a way to help us heal ourselves after kind of abuse or trauma or hardship. It can allow you to reclaim your visibility. So sometimes when we've been very traumatized, sometimes we feel like scared to be out in the open, and we can use our glamour. We need the glamour to kind of get us up and over that hump and out in the visible eye once more. So it can actually be very, very empowering to use it that way. So that is what I have prepared for today to talk about with Glamour Magick. To kind of summarize it all up, again, what it is not, it's not just about beauty. And sometimes I think people will shy away from this magic because they think it's not the deep magic that they want to do. But to me, what is deeper than really bringing in to yourself the person that you want to be, right? That is really what most of our magic is about changing things around us so that we can find our desires, so that we can create the lives that we want. And much of that starts within. So if you are somebody who has a lot of confidence issues and you feel that that gets in your way of your mundane and your magical lives, Glamour Magick may be exactly what you need to get you up and over that hump, give you the confidence you need to kind of step out into your best self and be your best self. And you don't have to believe it either. It's sort of like affirmations. When a person does affirmations, sometimes people won't do them because they're like, well, that's stupid. I don't believe it. Well, the point is, if you believed it, you wouldn't have to do the affirmations, right? So the point is, you say it enough that eventually it shifts energy inside of you, and that creates the belief eventually and the instilling of that belief. So the same thing with Glamour Magick. You don't have to believe you're confident to use it. You use it because you want to get up and over that hump. And eventually, you probably rely less and less on Glamour Magick because you just start to exude the states that you want naturally. So I hope that helps. Again, if you're watching live or you're back in replay, I'd love to hear if you try any of these techniques. If you try some Glamour Magick, you get excited about any of these ideas, I would love to hear about that. And also any experiences that you've had using Glamour Magick. So let me shift now to the Q&A. I've got 2 questions that were left for me, so I'm just going to answer those now, and then I will tell you a little bit what's coming up. If you're with us live, feel free to put some questions in the chat. It can be about anything related to witchcraft, shadow work, or energy work. And let's start. Okay, so Tom asked a question about Ouija boards. And so he said, what is the deal with Ouija boards? Are they as dangerous as people say, or the hype says? And he says, or is this just a silly question? So I said, well, it's not a silly question. Any question that we have to ask is never a silly question. And people wonder about this a lot. You know, there is a lot of hype that says that Ouija boards are very dangerous. And people will have experiences that they will tell you when bad things happen to them, and then it gives this sort of perception that they're dangerous. I think that with any technique where we are channeling something, we want to be using protection magic around us. So I think sometimes when people say they're dangerous, first of all, a lot of times the people who say they're dangerous are people who've like not ever tried them. So I remember I've heard people say like Kundalini and energy work is super dangerous. You should never do it. But if you question those people a little further, you'll find out that they've never even tried it. So it's oftentimes those are the people who are saying that something like a Ouija board is dangerous. But it is a tool of channeling. And so just like with automatic writing or something like that, if you're using it for channeling, you want to make sure that you're using protective magic. So you could use Glamour Magick to create protection. I would do some kind of type of grounding, something that would surround me with white light and create space where I am protected before I ever put my hands on a Ouija board. Now, I will tell you that since I was a teenager, I did a lot of Ouija boards, and there was something else called the Psychic Circle that came out in the late 90s, early 2000s that I also used. It became very clear very early that I was very good at using Ouija boards, so I would be asked. I had magical friends at some point. Once I came out as a witch, I had magical friends, but I had a lot of mundane friends, and they would want to play Ouija board, and they always wanted me to be there because I was good at using one. And so sometimes it's just, so I found it very easy. Now, what I will tell you is when I was very young, I did nothing to protect myself. And when I was especially very young, in my kind of like mid-teens, I was also Christian, still Christian at the time, kind of breaking away from Christianity. And I got scared of the Ouija board mainly because of what people told me or the things I read that were coming from Christian sources about how this was opening up portals and demons and dangerous things and things like that. And I remember being quite young and taking this Ouija board, and I got scared about it, and I put a crystal on it, and I remember I wrapped it up in tape and I threw it in a pond by my house. This is probably when I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. You know, eventually I came to fully to the craft when I was like 19 or 20. I started to get over that. I was still not really using much protection when I was doing Ouija boards. And I will say that I do feel that there were like some spirits that would come around that were not necessarily, they weren't like dangerous spirits, but they were just spirits that just were happened to be there because I was always doing the Ouija board with friends. And so since I wasn't very grounded, I always did feel that like some of that energy attached to me. And when I got older, I really understood the importance of grounding and using protection before we ever use the board. So are they dangerous? I don't think so, but other people might tell you differently. I think, though, again, anybody who's going to use them really needs to have some kind of a grounding and protection practice set up in place before they use them. And also, when you're done with it, you want to make sure that you cut off the energy, because that was something I never did, and I always felt that these spirits kind of stayed around the house and the apartment because of that. So if you are done, once you're done, you want to imagine your body, your energetic body. I would close my eyes and I just imagine any cord that's connected to me, any energetic cord, and then just imagine yourself cutting them all and severing them all. No harm to anybody, and just sending all the energy back to where it goes. And if you do that, you should have no problem with using the Ouija board. If you can find the Psychic Circle, it was really fun to use. And there are different, like, you know, there's the Ouija board that's made by I can't remember if it's Milton Bradley or Parker who made it, but there is that original Ouija board. But there are also beautiful ones that people will make out of wood, and paint them, and you can find those oftentimes at like witchy fairs and craft fairs and things like that. And those are also really awesome to use a spirit board like that. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Anybody else who has experiences with Ouija boards too, we would love to hear from you. Your insight into these questions is always helpful too. And then the second question is from Kurt, and he said, if you were setting up 4 altars for earth, air, water, and fire, which items would you add to the altars? Okay, so good question. So I'll tell you what we have done in our in-person rituals. So when we do the online rituals, which those of you who come to online rituals know they take place in this room, I don't set up full altars for each of the quarters. I will just put my quarter candles there. But if we're in an in-person ritual, we have more space and we want it to be more dramatic, we will always build elemental altars. So the first thing that we do is what I did a long time ago is I went to Joann's, and I know that Joann's is no longer around. But if you can find a fabric store that has pieces of, I got velvet, pieces of cloth that are kind of like the pieces that are cut, and they sell them, oh, I know, there's mismatched pieces or whatever. They came off the end of the ream or something like that. You can usually get those kind of cheap. And I got one in red and yellow, blue and green. And I have those for my little altars. So I have little tiny altars. Like I've heard of people using these little lac tables like this that they still sell at IKEA. I have these little folding like TV trays, and that's what we use for our elemental altars. And then I put this little altar cloth over it, and then we put them at the 4 directions. From there, the next thing I would put on top of them is the quarter candle. So a quarter candle of the color of that element I would put there. And then potentially a tool that would represent that element. So you could, in the air and east, you could put like your athame or something, or something like that that represents air to you. Or somebody could put a feather, or they could put a stick of incense, or they could put a sage stick or something like that. At fire, candles was usually what people will put. So you could put additional candles at that one. A lighter or something like that could go there. At west, water, you could put a bowl of water, you could put a cauldron, you could put a chalice. And at fire, south, you could put a wand there. And then at north earth, you could put like a paden or a pentacle design. You could put a bowl of salt, some crystals. So kind of think about things that correspond to those elements, and then those are the items that you could put on the altars. And then an additional thing you could also do is if there are images, animals like connected to those elements for you, or different images or symbols of those elements, those also could be placed on those altars. And so that's what we have usually done. And they sometimes will add different items to them, but most of the time, at the very least, we will have the quarter candle, and then we'll have one or more symbols of that particular element. And then that's what we do for our elemental altars. And then we usually also have one in center for the spirit. And for the spirit one, we usually have the spirit quarter candle, and then we might have some other items that we connect to spirit as well. So hope that helps. There isn't like a right or wrong way to do it. That's the way we do it. But I would just kind of think about what the element means to you, and then go from there and find items that connect to that element for you. So hope that helps. And let me go back to the chat. And okay. And then Kurt had said tarot cards for the elements as well. Yes, so you could put tarot cards too that represent, or any imagery that represents that element for you as well. Okay, any other questions? Put them in the chat. I'm going to let you know what's going on. All right, so next week there will be no episode of Ask Aislin on 8/19. So I am going on vacation, and it's probably a staycation, though I may end up in Sedona and do some filming there. So there may be some videos, but I need a break, and I didn't desperately need it because I'm pouring from a nearly empty cup, and I need to fill it up somehow. So I'll be taking off next week. And so there will be no episode, but I will be actually releasing an episode that I filmed the week of the fires in California. And because of the fires that night and the next day and the next several days, I never got around to releasing the episode. So I'm going to release it. I'm going to, if you're on the email list, I'll be mailing it out to people. It will show up on our YouTube channel. So I will be doing that. So there will be an episode. There just won't be a live episode. On 8/26, I'm not entirely sure. I may be taking that week off as well. So there may be 2 weeks of no Ask Aislin, but as soon as we're back on 9/2, there will be a whole brand new episode for sure. And I've got actually some guests who are going to be on the show with me. Beth is going to be on the show with me. I don't know what she's going to be talking about, but she'll be a guest eventually. And then I think in October, I'll be having some guests on the show as well. So there's a lot of great episodes coming up. I know I want to do an episode on cord cuttings and banishings. I have a lot of other, I don't have my list with me, but I have a lot of other episodes that I also want to do. So we have a lot to look forward to, but unfortunately, no live episodes as I take some most important needed time for myself, which I encourage you guys to do as well. Make sure that you're always filling yourself up when you need to. And in part of that is being cognizant of how much energy you're using and when can you take those breaks. So that is what I'm going to be doing. And I'm also, during that time of taking that time off, I'm going to be preparing for the release of our Demystifying Witchcraft course to the public, and also for the reopening of Shadow Seekers as well. So I'm also going to be doing some work while I'm on the vacation. That's why I probably need the 2 weeks. So I will see you guys at least if not in 2 weeks, I'll see you after that. And I will be back with some great episodes. And Demystifying Witchcraft, like I said, my course will be coming out. It teaches all the fundamentals of witchcraft, from casting a circle to calling the quarters, to evoking deities and calling in elements and writing spells and aligning with lunar time and solar time. So it's just a great course all around. So look for that if you're interested in kind of the foundations of witchcraft. That course may be right up your alley. And it also, for those who take that course and complete it, you get an invitation to join our online coven of Midnight's Flame. You don't have to accept, you can just take the course. But if you are interested in joining a coven, that is a pathway to do that. And then, of course, our Shadow Seekers membership is all about how to do shadow work and energy work that allows you to take everything you're doing to a greater level, because you're going to clear out your energetic blockages and your emotional blockages, and your magic will be that much more potent. So those will be coming very soon. All right. So if you like what you hear, make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the episode. That will help us get out to the feed of more people. If you are not already on our mailing list, I'm going to drop a link here in the chat. If you're watching back on YouTube later, that link will be in the description of the video. Here you can sign up for the Witch's Guide to Shadow Work, which will be sent to you, and then it will put you on our mailing list. That way you won't miss any of our future episodes or any of the events that we have coming up, including a free money magic workshop that will be taking place sometime in September. And also make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Body, Mind, Witchcraft, and that way you won't miss any of our future episodes either. All right, as always, it's awesome spending Tuesday night with you, and I look forward to seeing you again when I return live. And until next time, blessed be.